Am I the asshole for teaching my daughter that her father's family giving her a nickname is anti-Semitic? I'm Jewish, and my 2 kids, 5 female, 8 male, are being raised semi-Jewish. They have different fathers. My daughter's dad, X, hasn't been involved before now, but he's here now and is trying to make up for lost time, which I fully support. However, with X comes his family, and I had all sorts of problems with him when we were together. They'd ask really invasive questions and make very offensive comments all the time about my religion. When I named my daughter, I named her after one of my grandparents, the same as I did for my son. My grandparents have very stereotypically Jewish names. Think Miriam and Mendel, though the real names aren't so archaic, but that level of stereotypical Jewish name. Miriam's real name has a bit of an unusual sound in it, but it's found in most languages outside of English, and the name itself, and this pronunciation, are fairly popular in England, where we are. X and I have been easing into 50-50 custody of Miriam, but we're only up to unsupervised weekends right now. X told me that he's introduced her to his parents. Miriam came back from X's parents' place a couple weeks ago, and at dinner Mendel asked me what his English name was. I asked him what that meant. He said that Miriam says that we have our Jew names and our English names. I asked her where she got that from, and Miriam said that Granny and Grandpa call her Maisie because they said that's her English name. She admitted to not liking it, but said it's just what they call her. X didn't even try to deny it, immediately defending his parents, saying they can't pronounce the name and they're too close-minded to learn it. I said they can learn, but he insisted otherwise. When I pointed out that Miriam doesn't like it, he said she's 5, she doesn't know what she likes. So I sat both kids down for a talk about anti-Semitism, microaggressions, and the importance of learning people's names, and said, in no uncertain terms, that their names are the names I gave them, they reflect their heritage, and the only person who can change them is themselves. Miriam has continued going round X's house, and today she went back to her grandparents for the first time since that talk. She refused to respond to Maisie, and apparently said something like, "Mummy says Maisie is rude." They did not take it well. X brought Miriam back a full day early, and after I sent her to bed he asked me to step outside, which I did, and he proceeded to accuse me of trying to turn Miriam against him. His family said I was trying to make him look like a bad father and his parents like bad grandparents, and that I'd confused Miriam, upset his parents, and shown him up. He says he's trying to connect with Miriam and I've caused issues with that, so he wants me to undo it, so she responds to Maisie again. I said that they can and will learn her damn name, and I won't help them teach her to hide her Jewishness to make his parents more comfortable. He said I was overreacting and unreasonable as it's just a nickname, and accused me of using her as a pawn in my own personal issues with his family. He also said I was driving a wedge between Miriam and her grandparents, and between him and Miriam by extension, and that he was struggling enough being introduced to her life at this stage of her life. I didn't have to make connecting with her harder than it was, and that of all the debates I could choose to stand firm on, this is a relatively minor one compared to all the other negotiations we'll have to come to over the years.
I was trying to make him look like a bad father and his parents like bad grandparents. Nope, he and they are doing a bang-up job of both, all by themselves. Not the asshole, of course, not the asshole. Edit to say that this. He said that Miriam says that we have our Jew names and our English names. Sucks. I am reasonably certain your 5-year-old didn't come up with Jew names on her own. She learned that phrase from her father's parents. Gross.
Not the asshole. As Uzo Aduba's mother once said about her Nigerian name, if they can learn to say Tchaikovsky and Michelangelo and Dostoevsky, they can learn to say Uzoamaka. Your child cannot grow up in an environment where they belittle her cultural identity, race. It's so damaging and will have long-term consequences.
Not the asshole. Your ex's family have deemed her name too Jewish, refused to use it and renamed her. WTF? No, ex-husband. This is not a nickname. Nickname is, like Doodlebug or Pumpkin, or Al instead of Alfred. He's underreacting and damaging his own relationship with his child whom he refuses to put first. Not the asshole. Names are what the owner makes of them, not anyone else. Tell their family that they should deal with it, or they can't see Miriam anymore. Not the asshole. I was trying to make him look like a bad father and his parents like bad grandparents. That's ridiculous. You didn't have to try at all.
Not the asshole. In no way are you You didn't confuse Miriam. You reaffirmed her identity and told her that she didn't need to allow anti-Semitic behaviors. Also 1. 5-year-olds definitely know what they like. My 5-year-old has a name with a common English nickname, but we call her a Yiddish nickname, after her grandmother, as well as her full name. She will absolutely tell someone, "That's not my name," if they call her the English nickname when hearing her full name. 2. If he's actually trying to connect with her, maybe he should call her by her name. Not the asshole. What kind of grandparents can't be asked to properly say their grandkids' names? Asshole grandparents, that's who. Also, your ex is a huge asshole and needs to be standing up for his kids to his parents. 5 is plenty old to know what she likes, and it's also plenty old to realize that one parent doesn't have your back.
Not the asshole. Give the in-laws more Jewish nickname, like schmuck and putz.
Not the asshole. That was so rude of them to refuse to learn how to pronounce their own granddaughter's name and to take it upon themselves to give her an English name. How bizarre and lazy. You're so nice to let your kids go to their grandparents' house without you being there supervising, but you never know what kinds of, like you said, microaggressions they can be subjected to while there. It's good that you gave them a lesson instead of just brushing it off and acting like everything is fine.
Not the asshole. 5 years old is old enough to know what you like and don't like. She doesn't like the nickname and that's that. Even if this wasn't rooted in anti-Semitism, it's just plain rude to ignore someone's wishes of what they'd like to be called.
What's your stance on kosher food? How long until the ex's parents start sneaking bacon and other non-kosher food to the meals they feed her, face with rolling eyes and asking her how much she liked that food? Not the asshole.
And you can be sure they probably do say shit around your kid about Jews, involving stereotypes.
Holy shit, not the asshole. My dad's side are immigrants. They came over to America with real names and they changed it to shit like Gary and John to make their racist neighbors more comfortable. I'll admit that my intense loathing for this type of bullshit is a mite personal, but if the courts are at all involved in your custody arrangement, I would absolutely bring up their anti-Semitism and bullying of your children to forbid your ex's parents access to them. Not the asshole. I'm also called Miriam with Jewish heritage, and growing up, I had family members call me Millie and it drove me crazy. I understand that family often want to give someone a cute nickname that's less formal than their name, but trying desperately to anglicize a Jewish name is absolutely anti-Semitic. Your ex and his family could definitely find a different nickname for your Miriam if they insist on not calling her by her whole name. My family and friends call me Miri, for example. Not the asshole. She has a name, she likes her name. They don't get to give her a new name.
Not the asshole. It's completely rude and disrespectful to not use someone's name. They need you, respect you as a mother and respect your daughter as well. Your ex needs to do the same. Not the asshole. Record these instances, and if you haven't already, get a lawyer involved to work out a formal custody arrangement. Request something be put in the custody agreement about requesting the children's heritage and names.
NTA. Just have her rename Grandma and Grandpa to Adolf and Ava.
Not the asshole. And if your custody is handled by the courts, I would mention this to them, as this is in no way acceptable.
Not the asshole. Your daughter doesn't like the nickname they've given her, which they've given her because they're bigots and refuse to use her actual name because it's Jewish. Daughter is under no obligation to respond to a name that isn't hers, and that she doesn't like, to appease some old racists. Ex needs to be standing up for his daughter, not his parents. The grandparents are massive assholes.
Lol. What do they think about Hebrew origin names such as Joseph, Michael, Simon, Sarah, Susan, and Elizabeth? Not the asshole.
I am a teacher. One of the most offensive things to me is when teachers decide that an African or Latino name is too long or too hard to pronounce. It's their fucking name. Your children will face anti-Semitism in this world, and unfortunately it's starting with their grandparents. Stand behind your convictions and defend your kids.
Not the asshole. As someone with a Hebrew first name that is slightly difficult to pronounce, I strongly agree with what you did. It drives me nuts when people just give up on learning to pronounce my name. I would highly recommend the kids' book Chrysanthemum by Kevin Hanks. It's about a girl named Chrysanthemum who learns to love her unusual name. I still remember it 20 years later because it helped me learn to love my unique name.
1. That's incredibly anti-Semitic. Don't let him gaslight or minimize this. In the age of ridiculous QAnon theories about Jewish people, he needs to take a vested interest in denouncing these things and educating his child as well as himself. Grandparents need less time near her. 2. You should check with an attorney about how to make sure grandparents are not involved with her care. 3. Your ex needs childcare classes. It's incredibly ignorant to say a 5-year-old does not know what they like and has no autonomy in what they're called. Not the asshole. Keep talking to your daughter to recognize that this is not normal and her name is her own and she can call herself what she wants and refuse to respond to the racist nickname.
100% not the asshole. I was raised Orthodox Jewish and I love my name. Other people constantly try to change it to a so-called English version, but I will have none of that. If you can't be bothered to learn my name after several interactions, the NC I can't be bothered to speak to you. Fact of the matter is she doesn't like the nickname, and they are being insanely rude and insensitive.
Not the asshole. Many Jewish people do have English names, my cousins do, and many don't, my family doesn't. Giving an English name to a Jewish person who doesn't have one is anti-Semitic, as you said.
Not the asshole. Talk to your lawyer. His behavior and that of his parents is bigoted and emotionally abusive to your children. It may be time for supervised visitation only.
Give your daughters difficult names. Give your daughters names that command the full use of tongue. My name makes you want to tell me the truth. My name doesn't allow me to trust anyone that cannot pronounce it right. Worcestershire.
I mean, if they'd given her a nickname, that would be one thing. But they decided her name is a Jew name, and taught her that that is a thing that exists, then whitewashed her existing name for their comfort without even consulting you. Your ex calling it a nickname is absolute gaslighting nonsense. Good thing that at 5 Miriam is better at standing up to these bigots than he is.
Maybe you should give them some slack. Miriam is 3 whole syllables. It may be too much for their brains.
Not the asshole. They can't pronounce the names. Unless you named them Shlomo and Svoboda. I can't picture that situation. Not the asshole. When I was younger, my mother's non-Romani side of the family told me to stop speaking Sinti because it was unchristian babble. Now I've lost a whole pathway to my heritage trying to relearn from severely limited resources as an adult. If your ex's family wants to try and steal your children's heritage, they better be ready to catch hands first. A Gage, non-Romani, may have nothing, but he will always have the audacity. I'm sure you can substitute a fitting G word in your case as well.
Massive not the asshole. You should limit visitation with ex if he can't agree to stop taking the kids to his parents. If he goes to court, just tell the judge all about this. Best of luck. Anti-Semites are the worst.
Not the asshole. Your ex has major issues if he can't see how wrong this to do his own child.
Not the asshole at first. I thought you meant like a nickname. But no, they are legit wanting to change her name. F them. You aren't wrong, love. Not the asshole. Holy smokes, my head would have exploded. It's her name. How in the world does anyone think this would be okay?
Not the asshole. My coworker has a very Egyptian name with a very specific pronunciation that most Americans apparently struggle with. He's so used to no one making an effort that when we mistakenly Americanized his name, he didn't even correct us. I didn't find that out until 4 years later. It has been an absolute struggle to get it right because I've known him by the wrong name for years, and it's taken a lot of practice to get close to the proper pronunciation. It took me over a month to work on that. But I nailed it down because that's what decent humans do. Names are important. Names with personal attachments are very important. X and his family don't have any right to try to erase that, especially when Miriam doesn't even like their variation.
Not the asshole. I have an Irish name and let me tell you the struggle is real. I stopped using my old pharmacy because one of the techs kept calling me David. I am a woman. There is no V in my name. I told her how to pronounce it and she asked me if I was sure. It's only been my name for 40 fucking years. I'd know if it was David. God, I wish I were making that up. It's very disrespectful to not even make an attempt to learn someone's name, and a whole other name isn't a nickname. The grandparents need to calm their tits and learn the kid's name. Even if they aren't capable of saying it perfectly, which can happen, they should at least come as close as possible.
Not the asshole. This is horrible parenting and grand partnering by the father and his parents. For your kid, grandkid, you should do everything in your power to make them happy and comfortable. If you can't do the bare minimum of calling her by her name because they're anti-Semitic as hell, they don't deserve to be in her life. Blood doesn't always mean family.
Info: I'm not Jewish, so please forgive me for my possible ignorance. If your daughter's name it's Miriam, why wouldn't they just shorten it to Mary or something of that kind? Wouldn't that make more sense? In my family, nicknames are our love names, lol.
Projection is all I read from all the things your ex is saying. You aren't making anything difficult nor making his or them look like bad parents, they are all doing that themselves.
Not the asshole. This isn't just anti-Semitic but dehumanizing to the child as well. It's understandable to want to come up with a pet name for a loved one even if you can pronounce their name. Unless they are in trouble, it is rare for me to greet my husband or my 2 kids by their given name. But you do choose a name that suits the person. Your daughter said she didn't like being called that, so that should be the end of it. Either pick a different pet name or go back to their given name. My youngest doesn't like being called sweetie or girly, so I usually either use her given name or Pumpkin, a nickname my grandpa used on me a lot, and it suits her personality as well since she can be cute as a little pumpkin or a little punk depending on her mood.
Not the asshole. If your ex doesn't think a 5 years old knows what she likes, he is not suited for unsupervised visits at all. That right there is a gigantic red flag that he doesn't care what she likes.
Honest to God, your post has my blood boiling. I take it the reason that X hasn't been around for the last 5 years was by his choice. Yes. The nerve of him. Said I was trying to make him look like a bad father and his parents like bad grandparents. He is. They are. He says he's trying to connect with Miriam. Probably wouldn't have to try if he hadn't fucked off for 5 years. Accused me of using her as a pawn in my own personal issues with his family. They are using her as a pawn against you. Fuck that noise. He was struggling enough being introduced to her life at this stage of her life. Again, whose fault is that? The nerve. Not the asshole. Stand your ground. What a pack of assholes.
Not the asshole. Tell him if names don't matter, then the children will be instructed to call him Uncle Bob and his parents old lady and geezer. It is not Miriam's fault that this fraction of a man absented himself from her life for 5 years and he and his parents aren't clever enough to learn her proper name. I would, if you can, stop letting him have her unsupervised because what he's doing is actively harmful. I have Jewish friends from childhood who were born in Israel. Their names are what they are regardless of who is speaking to them. If it's such relatively minor issue, then X should have no problem getting his parents on board with pronouncing his daughter's name correctly. You should also remind him that parents dismissing their children's feelings is why they go NC once they are grown. If he can love her enough to respect her no matter how young, she will love and adore him no matter how old. If he really wants the relationship he claims to want, this is his first important step to having it.
Not the asshole. Your ex doesn't get to determine what is anti-Semitic. And the fact that his family has been so for years and he still defends them shows. He's clearly gaslighting you in that talk you had.
Dude, my dad is white and my mom is Mexican. And my name is really complicated to say cause it's named after an old castle-like place in Mexico. My dad did not make a big fuss over it, cause it's my name and he's going to pronounce it the way it is. Those grandparents sound like D-bags who have no respect for yours and your children's culture. It's their damn name. Those old crones need to figure out how to pronounce it properly.
Not the asshole. There is nothing wrong with a nickname if the child likes it and it makes them feel loved. My own bub, who was a Miriam, loved to be called Mimi. It made her feel cute. But OP's daughter does not like Maisie. It makes her feel excluded. That's the problem. It would be different if they called her Miss Cookie, which was because they always made cookies together and she was their little ginger snap. That would make her feel special. Now she needs to be called by her name. Maybe in a few months or a year, a nickname will present itself.
Not the asshole. And if he's willing to let her be treated like that, maybe 50-50 custody is a bad idea.